What's up, guys? Vic here with Strikers Reptiles. As you very well may know, we here in the States are currently in the height of Savannah Monitor importing season, and with that, there are a lot of new Savannah Monitor keepers. So, with these new Savannah Monitor keepers comes a need for new Savannah Monitor setups. Now, if you've done even a little bit of research into Savannah Monitors, you know that the setups they require are rather extensive. Typically, the minimum recommendations you see for a Savannah Monitor are a 6 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot cage, or even an 8 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot cage. These are recommended as the minimums. Because of that, a lot of people who purchase Savannah Monitors, especially when people purchase them impulsively, are people who do not have the proper setup right away. So what a lot of people end up doing is temporarily placing their Savannah Monitor in a fish tank or an aquarium. And what this video is going to be all about today is 3 reasons why an aquarium is a horrible choice for a Savannah Monitor, even for the beginning of their life. So guys, the number one reason, and hopefully the most obvious reason as to why Savannah Monitors do not belong in aquariums, is due to size. Now, when it comes to custom-built aquariums, of course, you can do any size you want, but when it comes to commercially available aquariums, we're talking about 20, 40, 75 gallon, up to 150 gallon. These are all woefully undersized for a Savannah Monitor. Savannah Monitors are big lizards. They're not massive, they're not the biggest pet lizard you can have, but they do max out around 2.5 to 4 feet. On top of that, when they're kept correctly, they're very active lizards. So for that reason, the minimum cage size that you want is going to be at least 6 feet long and at least 3 feet wide. That's for a small Savannah Monitor. If your Savannah Monitor is larger, you're going to have to go even bigger. So when it comes to purchasing a tank, there simply is no tank that can stand up to those sizes properly. So now the issue is, with a lot of new keepers, you have people who say, oh, well, I'm aware that the Savannah Monitor will outgrow its tank, but I plan to keep it in this tank for the first few months of its life. So guys, the number 2 reason, and by far the most important reason as to why you can't keep your Savannah Monitor in an aquarium, is hydration. I was going to say humidity at first, but it has a lot more to do with it. There's a lot more that goes into keeping a Savannah Monitor properly than just saying humidity. It's hydration, guys. When a Savannah Monitor is shipped from West Africa to Europe or America, they are dehydrated. There's no water dish in that box or crate that they're being shipped across the world in. When they arrive, they are placed in a tank almost 100% of the time until they are sold. They are placed in a tank because it's just what pet stores and pet flippers and all the other people that are selling Savannah Monitors, it's what they have on hand. They have a tank with a screen top. And due to that, humidity is never trapped in the air which they are breathing. Now, Savannah Monitors, like humans, when they breathe, they lose water vapor through their breath. Every exhale is a little less water than they had before. And because of this, they can very easily become dehydrated. Now, a lot of people believe they hear the word Savannah and they think of a dry, desert-like region. As it turns out, if you look up the humidity of the regions which these animals originate from, you're talking anywhere from 45 to 85%, sometimes 95% most of the time during the rainy season. So you're talking about an animal that comes from extremely high humidity situations. When you also factor in the fact that they often live in burrows, you're talking about close to 100% humidity at times. Now, this can be a huge issue for people who keep their animals in aquariums with screen tops, due to the fact that water vapor is just able to rise out of the enclosure. Now, when you keep your Savannah Monitor in a wooden or plastic enclosure or something with a top that's better at maintaining the humidity, what you get is when your Savannah Monitor exhales, water vapor comes out. When your Savannah Monitor inhales, water vapor goes in. And that results in your Savannah Monitor not becoming dehydrated. So if you don't want to become part of what I'd call the 90%, and by that I mean the 90% of keepers who lose their Savannah Monitor in their first year with it, then you really need to heed this warning and understand that just because a pet store employee told you that a fish tank would be good enough for the first couple of months, you know, they were talking probably about the Savannah Monitor's size. And yes, size-wise, that aquarium will be good enough for the first couple of months. However, you need to understand, most Savannah Monitor keepers lose their Savannah Monitor in their first year of life. Now guys, when a Savannah Monitor becomes dehydrated, it'll start with seemingly benign symptoms such as being lethargic, maybe a decreased appetite, oftentimes becoming more friendly or more placid, you could say, where they're easier to handle, less feisty. That may seem like a good thing if you're working on gaining your Savannah Monitor's trust, but it actually can turn out that it's just dehydrated. And unfortunately, when the more negative symptoms start to manifest, such as organ failure and gout, and when you notice your Savannah Monitor is starting to sleep in its water dish and it's not coming out of its burrows for days at a time, by that point, it's generally going to be too late. So when it comes to dehydration in Savannah Monitors, you have to understand that if you want your Savannah Monitor to live somewhat healthy and long life, and I say somewhat because you can do all these things right, and Savannah Monitors, they just historically have not thrived in captivity. So if you want your Savannah Monitor to have a chance at thriving, you have to stray from the path of what people say is good enough. Because frankly, you can do everything right and still not have this species thrive. They're not bearded dragons where they've just been bred for generation after generation successfully. So to even have a chance at your Savannah Monitor thriving, you really have to walk a different road from the majority of new Savannah Monitor keepers, especially when it comes to hydration. Now guys, our third reason today for why aquariums are not an adequate choice for Savannah Monitors is because of temperatures. Like many reptiles, Savannah Monitors need the ability to thermoregulate. However, one way in which they vary greatly from many other reptiles is the range in temperatures that they need to properly thermoregulate their bodies. If you take ball pythons, for example, an excellent hot end for a ball python is 88 to 92 degrees. That's the hottest part of the ball python enclosure that you want, the hot spot. Some people even go a little bit lower, especially when they're breeding. On the cool end, you want anywhere from 78 to 82. That's what most experts use, if I'm not mistaken. That's the cool end temperature. So you're talking about a thermal gradient that is no more than about 14 or 15 degrees for a ball python. And that's due to the fact that they live in a microclimate, which is very stable, and the temperature is pretty much always the same. They don't so much come out to bask. Now with Savannah Monitors, it's the complete opposite. Your cage can range from anywhere from 75 on the cool side to the basking spot being upwards of 150 degrees. That's a huge thermal gradient, and one that simply cannot be properly maintained in a tank. The reason that it can't be properly maintained in a tank is because, obviously, when you have a tank with small dimensions, you're going to have an issue with creating this extremely hot spot of upwards of 130 degrees for their basking site, and then still providing them with an area where they can get away from that basking site. Because just because they want to be at the 130 degree basking spot sometimes doesn't mean they can survive always being at it. And if you have that ridiculously hot spot in something small like a 20-30 gallon tank, you're going to cook your monitor. Next up is the issue of maintaining the ambient temperature. Now, again, going back to that screen top that comes with most aquariums, when you have your heat trapped into this fish tank or this aquarium, you're going to lose it, and that's going to cause your ambient temperature to be low. So your basking site might be the 130 to 140 degrees you need, but the air temperature throughout the rest of the tank might be 70 because that's your house temperature. The other issue is that glass is a conductor of heat. And what that means is basically the heat that is inside the glass is going to easily transition right through it and out into the room, and that heat is lost now. So basically, you could have a 135-degree basking site, and then the whole rest of the cage is 72. It doesn't create a proper thermal gradient for a species that needs that wide of a range. Now, when you use wood or plastic, those are insulators of heat. Since they trap heat, what you'll end up with is, say, your hot spot is 135 degrees, and your cool side is 75 to 80 degrees, and your warm side is 95 degrees. In the middle, it'll go 90, 85, 80. So you've got different temperatures so that it can choose the appropriate temperature, not just choose between hot and cold, but rather stay somewhere in the middle of the hot and cool sides, and that's another reason why they need such a large enclosure. So basically, without a properly insulated enclosure like a wooden or plastic/PVC enclosure, you're just not going to be able to provide the thermal gradient that this species needs. So guys, that's our 3 reasons. They are not the only reasons by any stretch of the imagination. So if you have more and you want to share them, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have countering reasons, maybe you use tanks and you've had success with them, I'd love to hear it. We can have a discussion. But in all the speaking to monitor keepers, both new and old, and speaking with monitor experts, there just aren't many documented cases of monitors doing well in tanks, and I believe that it's one of the most black and white subjects there are when it comes to keeping Savannah monitors. You know, you can debate whether Savannah monitors do well on rodent diets or invertebrate diets, whether their basking temperature should be 135 or 155, but I truly believe that Savannah monitors will always do better in wooden or PVC enclosures than tanks. And I don't say that to have this like sense of elitism. I know there's a big controversy back and forth in the ball python community when it comes to tanks versus tubs, and that's not the kind of controversy I'm looking to engage in by creating this video. I'm more stating that, you know, the writing on the wall makes it pretty clear that Savannah monitors just do not thrive in tanks. So guys, yeah, like I said, feel free to leave a comment. Please keep it civil. Feel free to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you guys. Hope you all have a great day.